Welcome to the Summoner 1 to 100 Leveling Skills Guide. I'll be going over all of your skills as you train the big Yoshi P for new summons, better than the rest of them, but also hopefully kill your enemies along the way. Watch you go from this to this. This is a beginner-focused series, aimed to help those new to Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO genre, or still just need a little help. In that same vein, this will be focused on your actions and how to use them. We'll not be going deep into optimization, instead focused on the general play and giving general opening rotations. We will go through these together in order to help new players understand the process. If you wish to push your play further, there are further places you could research the job. The goal here is to drop players in on the ground level so they can make strides to improve themselves. Tooltips are broken up by expansion and that expansion's level cap. So level 50 for A Realm Reborn, 60 for Heavensward, 70 for Stormblood, 80 for Shadowbringers, 90 for Endwalker, and our final level cap of 100 in Dawntrail. I recommend all players add Sprint and Limit Break to their hotbars, both found in the General tab of the Actions menu. And as for how my hotbars build, it'll make sense at 100. Just put your skills on your hotbars so that you are comfortable as you play. Everyone has their own way of doing things. If you want more info on the how and why I set up my UI, check the description for a video about it. Finally, keep in mind that this is an active MMO. Patches can and will change jobs. Check the description for a quick overview of each patch's changes or special notes. With all that out of the way, please support me in whatever way you can, check my links below, and let's begin. Summoner is a mage DPS that answers the question of what people are asking for when they ask for everything to be on one or two buttons. While every job has flexibility and complex parts, Summoner is the simplest job of the game. More than half of your time will be spent hitting a single button over and over. Early levels quickly establish the base rotation you take all the way to level cap, with later levels not adding too much. A lot of flash gets added, but there is still some substance. Meanwhile, the flexibility of the job comes down to 4 buttons: the order you summon your 3 gemstone primals, and how you fit in Ruin 4. This is due to which skills have cast times, as you have little to no cast times overall. This makes summoning the most mobile mage by far. To play an Arcanist, you either start as one, or pick the class up in the Limsa Lominsa's Arcanist Guild after completion of your level 10 class quest as your first class. Let's get into the finer details of each skill. Level 1, Ruin. With a 1.5 second cast time and costing 300 MP, this simply does 240 potency of damage to a target. You're going to be hitting this button a lot. Level 2, Summon Carbuncle. The best skill in the entire game. It has a 1.5 second cast time, costs 400 MP, and summons a blue Carbuncle. He wiggles for you. There are other things he's here for, but not much right now. You should always make sure you have your Carbuncle summoned, not just because he is the cute, but because he is tied into many of your skills. He also comes with an extra hotbar, but you can entirely ignore it. Level 2, Radiant Aegis. This is an ability on a 60-second cooldown. This causes Carbuncle to put a shield on you with 20% of your max HP. This shield lasts for 30 seconds, but if you're taking damage, this timer means little. That's for planning ahead when your toolkit is more complicated. This is your main defensive ability. Make sure to use this early and often, especially for unavoidable damage in party content. The harder the content you get into, the harder hitting unavoidable damage will be. Sometimes Aegis is required to survive. In casual content, it's more just very helpful, especially if you're taking avoidable damage. That tends to give vulnups, making you take increased damage. Aegis is a counter to this. This is also why Carbuncle is required. If at any point Carbuncle is not on the field, Radiant Aegis cannot be used. Some skills will force Carbuncle to temporarily disappear as well. This counts as far as not being on the field, making Aegis unusable for the duration. Level 4, Physick. I'm not even going to go into this. Physick on Summoner is bad. In low levels, this makes for an okay emergency heal, mostly just for your class quests. Though I would argue it's not even good there. You're better off just doing damage. By level 50, Physick is not going to have even a bare minimum effect. Level 6, Aethercharge. This cute Carby gauge is better than what it will become, but sadly we will one day say goodbye to it. On a 60-second cooldown, but still counting as a spell, which means spell speed will lower its cooldown, this buffs your Ruin spells by 50 potency. Outburst is boosted by 20 potency. This lasts 15 seconds. We don't have the higher tiers or Outburst, but this means Ruin will do 290 potency of damage for 15 seconds. This timer is shown on the gauge. Just spam Ruin until the timer runs out. Notably, this skill cannot be used outside of combat. You must start combat to use Aethercharge. When the 15 seconds run out, you will gain Ruby Arcanum. The red gem on the Carby gauge will light up. This is where the next skill comes into play. Level 6, Summon Ruby. This is an instant cast spell. It summons a Ruby Carbuncle to execute an attack for 400 potency of damage on the target. Afterwards, your normal Carby will return to your side. This ties back into skills making Aegis unavailable. You will also be granted 2 stacks of Fire Attunement, as shown on the gauge. These can be used on the next skill. Level 6, Gemshine. This button does nothing on its own. When going through your different phases of attack, this button will change. One of these times is anytime you use a gem from your gauge. In this case, we just used Summon Ruby and got Fire Attunement, changing Gemshine into Level 6, Ruby Ruin. With a 2.8 second cast time, 3 second recast, and costing 300 MP, this deals 340 potency of damage to a target. Despite being slower to cast, this is stronger than Ruin. Each use of it spends one of our Fire Attunement stacks, meaning we get 2 Ruby Ruins. Then we go back to spamming our normal Ruin. So to sum it up so far, start the battle with Carby summoned, use Aethercharge as soon as it becomes available, use a powered up Ruin for the duration, use a gem and spend the attunement on Gemshine, then go back to Ruin until the next Aethercharge. Congrats, you now know how to do Summoner up to Dawntrail basically. Don't believe me? Follow along and we'll see that while we get more stuff, it doesn't exactly change this core loop. At level 8 we have our first role action of Addle. These are important extensions of your toolkit. I will not be going deeper into details about these skills. If you would like more details on these skills, head to the description or the card in the corner to see a video on what these are about. Also at level 10 is Sleep. Level 10, Energy Drain and Fester. We got a second UI element, 2 diamonds of Aetherflow. These get filled anytime we use Energy Drain. This has a 60-second cooldown timer and deals 200 potency of damage to a target. Being an OGCD, you can weave it between spell casts without delaying your next spell. It's also an instant cast, as most abilities are. While the 200 potency of damage is nice, the big important bit is the Aetherflow we got. This lets us use Fester. It has a 1 second recast and deals 300 potency to the target for 1 Aetherflow. So every use of Energy Drain lets us use 2 Festers, for a total of 800 potency every minute. Because of your cast times being 1.5 seconds, you can weave in one of these per cast. Ruin, Energy Drain, Ruin, Fester, and so on. It's basic, but some extra interaction every minute. More is added to Energy Drain later too. Level 12, Resurrection. With a very long 8 second cast time and costing 2400 MP, this revives a fallen player. Ideally you never use this, but people die all the time. You will end up using this. Ideally, you let the healer handle raises, but if the healer died or is busy trying to keep everyone alive, the revive will fall to you. Don't be over-eager to raise a fallen teammate, but don't ignore this either. Mid-battle raising can make or break the difference between the group wiping and harder content, especially if it is a healer you are picking up off the ground. Also, a revive comes with 5 seconds of invincibility so long as you do not perform any non-movement actions. At level 14 is the role action Lucid Dreaming. Level 15, Enhanced Aethercharge and Summon Topaz. This is a class quest skill. You must be doing your class and job quests to get your full toolkit. Please do them as soon as possible. I will not be verbally pointing this out anymore after this point, but the top left will have the class and job quest element whenever I'm going over a new skill that is a quest skill. Enhanced Aethercharge means Aethercharge now gives you a second Arcanum, Topaz Arcanum. This allows you to use both Summon Ruby and Summon Topaz. These are not mutually exclusive, you get to use both. This is an instant cast just like Summon Ruby, summoning a Topaz Carbuncle to bop the enemy with a 400 potency hit. It also gives 4 charges of Earth Attunement, as shown on the Carby gauge. Gemshine will now become Topaz Ruin. This is an instant cast and costs 300 MP. It does 240 potency of damage to the target for 1 Earth Attunement. This is the same power as Ruin right now, but comes with movement. Move into a better position closer to the party, avoid AoE sent at you, whatever reason you need to move and cast. The 400 potency hit from Topaz Carbuncle is enough for you to want these available. Get used to using Topaz Ruin rotationally, as later on it's stronger than just a normal Ruin. At level 18 is the role action Swiftcast. This is important for Summoner. You use this on Resurrection for negating that 8-second cast time, and we're going to make this part of our normal rotation. Level 20, Maim and Mend. This is a boost of 10% to your power. It's not really something special, just intended balancing. Level 22, Enhanced Aethercharge 2 and Summon Emerald. Same as the first time, this upgrades Aethercharge. Now you get 3 gems, Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald. Same as Ruby and Topaz, Emerald summons a Carby to do 400 potency of damage to a target. This one grants 4 stacks of Wind Attunement and Emerald Ruin. This is an instant cast spell, but has a recast of 1.5 seconds. This means you cast more spells faster. It costs the same 300 MP. Despite it causing a smaller 160 potency of damage, functionally this is stronger than Ruin. The recast timer is doing a lot of work. Be ready to hammer the button to keep up, at least until you're used to it. Now with all 3 gems we'll get, we cycle through all 3 one at a time. Ruby, Emerald, Topaz, or any order that is called for as a fight demands. All 3 are worth it. Later on, the use of these will change slightly, become stronger, and will definitely want us to use all 3 every time we get them. With how this really is our core toolkit, we can already establish an opener. Normally we would do this at level 50 for our first opener, but we don't get anything new to change this along the way. This will also really emphasize how quick Summoner gets its full toolkit, and the rotation barely changes up to level cap. Pre-pull, Summon Carbuncle, Ruin, Aethercharge, Ruin, 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 Energy Drain, Ruin, Fester, Ruin, Fester, Ruin, Summon Topaz, Topaz Ruin spam, Summon Emerald, Emerald Ruin spam, Summon Ruby, Ruby Ruin spam, back to normal Ruin spam until you can repeat. The big thing to notice is that I was telling the truth when I said you press the same button most of the time. There are 7 ruins and 10 uses of Gemshine, and this covers the full rotation of Summoner across a 60-second duration to near level cap. Use Aethercharge, use your gems, and then use Ruin as filler until Aethercharge comes off of cooldown. Weave Energy Drain and Fester in there too. Currently, the only real thinking is the order of your gems. Currently, there is only 1 accepted level cap opener for general play, with that being the order shown here. Topaz, Emerald, Ruby. Dawntrail has changed a bunch that Topaz is the best start. At this low level, Topaz is actually the worst because it's not actually stronger than Ruin, but I'm about establishing muscle memory than an optimal level 22 opener. Beyond the general order though, is how a fight expects you to behave. If you are at a set of gems and the fight requires you to run around a lot, you'll definitely want this order. But if you need to, you can use Ruby first so you have more movement later. This is the main flexibility point of Summoner. There's one order for optimal damage in a vacuum, but keeping up with a fight can require you to change the order up, and allows you to do so. Finally, the fact we don't start weaving abilities until 3 ruins in. This is preparing for later levels when we have more abilities and the existence of party buffs. While we don't have those now, might as well practice it. Feel free to just spam the stuff for now otherwise. This makes for a good base for slotting in the rest of our future skills. It also works as our AoE rotation, AoE being area of effect. Not in that these are all AoE skills, but in that they all have AoE versions. AoE versions of Ruin and Gemshine, with your summons later becoming AoE. We can replace the single target skills with the AoE versions once we get them. Some of the skills are much higher level, but some are near immediately gained. Level 26, Outburst. 1.5 second cast time and costing 300 MP, this hits an enemy and all enemies within 5 yalms of the initial target with 100 potency of damage. If there are 3 or more enemies to fight, this is better than Ruin. Anytime there's a group, small or big, do this instead of Ruin. For a quick reminder about Aethercharge, it increases Outburst damage by 20 potency, making it do 120 potency per enemy. Level 26, Precious Brilliance. At the same time as getting Outburst, we get Precious Brilliance. This is the AoE version of Gemshine. Once again, you cannot use this on its own. It turns into the different AoE skills for all of your summons. These are Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald Outburst. All of them cost 300 MP. Ruby has a 2.8 second cast time, just like Ruby Ruin, and does 160 potency to the target and all enemies within 5 yalms of that target. Topaz is instant cast and does 110 potency to the target and the enemies around it. Emerald is 70 potency with a 1.5 second recast. Make sure you swap to these skills with 3 or more enemies. No matter what, you'll be using all 3 since they're better than Outburst. Level 30. Ruby, Topaz, and Enkindle Ruin II. These are just straight power boosts to your Gemshine skills. Ruby is now 380 potency, Topaz has gone up to 270 potency, Emerald has hit 170 potency. Nothing more to it. Level 30. Ruin Mastery and Ruin II. We also have our normal Ruin increased. Same cast time, same MP cost, but now it does 270 potency of damage. To obtain the Summon a Job, you must first reach level 30 and complete the level 30 Arcanist quest. Additionally, complete the main scenario quest, Self-Management, which is at level 20 in the story. Return to the guild, and the quest should be there for you. Level 30, Ruby Summoning Mastery, and Summon Ifrit. This is an upgrade to summon Ruby. Instead of summoning a cute Carbuncle, you summon an ugly Ifrit Eggy. This does 500 potency of damage. The button otherwise works the same. Add some flavor though. Level 35, Topaz Summoning Mastery, and Summon Titan. This is the exact same as our Ifrit upgrade, but instead turning Topaz into a chicken nugget. Now it does 500 potency to the target. Notably though, this isn't just job quest locked. You must also progress the story to completion of the Titan questline. Level 40, Maim and Mend II. Now it's a 30% boost to our basic damage. You still won't really notice it, enemies are getting stronger too, and it's more an intended buff within the first 50 levels. Level 40, Pain Flayer. This is our AoE use for Aetherflow. Rather than using Fester during AoE, we want to be using Pain Flayer. It does 150 potency to all enemies hit. On 3 or more enemies, this surpasses Fester. Summoner is almost always a 3 or more enemies for AoE job, but this has exceptions. Just remember to keep using Energy Drain on cooldown and spending the Ether Flows. Energy Drain being a weavable ability means it doesn't take away from your AoE power. At level 44 is our last role action of Surecast. Level 45, Emerald Summoning Mastery, and Summon Garuda. Similar to Titan, you must complete the Garuda questline to gain access to this job quest. This is still really weird. Summon Garuda is both an upgrade and a downgrade. Summon Garuda is no longer a 400 potency hit to a single enemy, it is a 100 potency hit to all enemies within 5 yalms of the initial target. So in AoE situations, this can be an improvement. On bosses, this is a straight up downgrade. This feels like an oversight when they were changing Summoner to the updated Endwalker toolkit, but they haven't changed it still. At level 50, this is remedied. Level 50, Enkindle. This is where the oversight comes in. Every summon now does 600 potency of damage, and is an AoE that does 60% less damage to every additional enemy, which is 240 potency per enemy. All 3 Aegis do this, though the shape of the AoEs differ. Ifrit rushes up toward your target and does a 5 yalm cone in the direction of the target. Titan runs up to the enemy and does a 5 yalm AoE around itself. Garuda shoots her AoE directly at the target. Single target, this shape difference doesn't matter. For AoE, Garuda is the easiest one to use. Titan has a full circle, which means they have the most potential. The problem is he always seems to use it early and not capture the full range of enemies he could. Ifrit just outright has the worst potential enemy count. Beyond them becoming AoE, these are all functionally power boosts and nothing more. For a side note though, you may have noticed my summons were always blue carbuncles. That is because if you return to the Arcanist guild, there is a small side quest to unlock Pet Glamours. Change the look of your summons however you wish, though anything other than blue carby is wrong. If you disagree, you need to get good. Scrub. As a reminder of what I said before, AoE openers are essentially the same thing as single target, just replacing our ruins with outburst attacks. Festa is also instead Pain Flayer. I do have to also mention that AoE Opener is a bit of a misnomer. AoE is a far more complex situation due to a number of factors. The main reason is how most tanks will be wall-to-wall pulling. You don't want to unleash your big attacks on only a small group of enemies, plus you can't cast and run at the same time. Swiftcast is very limited. Even if you could cast and move, you'll miss most of the enemies since they're going to spread out for chasing the tank. Wait for the tank to grab the final group of enemies and stop running. This will maximize the damage you do. Also, like single target, this opener kind of doesn't make sense in this level context. Aethercharge isn't great when you have 600 potency nukes in the form of your summons. Specifically up to level 58, you can safely just waste Aethercharge on the run. Don't get used to it though, as Aethercharge is going to become extremely good. That's why I have the opener like this. I also have us use Garuda first, and then your choice. This is also stuff that won't make sense until Endwalker, so let's not focus too hard on that. That's the end for A Realm Reborn. Heaven's Ward is going to make the openers make a lot more sense than it does now, but only marginally because of a very good skill. Level 52, Energy Siphon. This is the AoE version of Energy Drain. It shares the same 60-second cooldown as Energy Drain, and using either of the skills, both will go on cooldown. Energy Siphon itself, meanwhile, is a 5-yalm AoE around a target. It does 100 potency to every enemy hit, meaning it's better than Energy Drain on 3 or more enemies. Once again, that 3 enemy count is further emphasized for AoE. Make sure to keep the cooldown running, and throw out Pain Flayers in AoE. Level 54, Ruin Mastery 2, Ruin 3, Ruby Ruin 3, Topaz Ruin 3, and Emerald Ruin 3. These are potency boosts to all of our Ruin 2 based skills. We don't need to really dive into these, just know that they've gotten stronger. Level 58, Aethercharge Mastery, Dreadwyrm Trance, Astral Impulse, and Astral Flare. Welcome to Dreadwyrm Trance. Aethercharge has been given a much needed upgrade. Dreadwyrm Trance still has a 60-second cooldown, but has a better effect than just upping your potencies. Dreadwyrm Trance changes Ruin 3 and Outburst into better skills for the same 15-second duration. Astral Impulse replaces Ruin and does a very strong 440 potency to a single target. Astral Flare replaces Outburst and does 180 potency to all enemies hit. Not only are these very strong improvements, these are instant cast spells. This fact alone makes Dreadwyrm Trance infinitely better. Level 60, Astral Flow and Death Flayer. Dreadwyrm Trance gets even better. Astral Flow is similar to Gemshine and Precious Brilliance. Only during Dreadwyrm Trance does it become active. It becomes Death Flayer. This has a 20-second cooldown, meaning you only get 1 Death Flare per Dreadwyrm Trance. Being an ability, you can weave it between astral casts. As for its power, it is a 500 potency orbital laser on your target, doing 200 potency to all enemies within 5 yalms. So every time you go into Dreadwyrm Trance, we spam our Ruin or Outburst button with weaving in our Aetherflow abilities and making sure Death Flare also comes out. We can very easily fit it into our opener too. It's broadly the same, just with Death Flare added in. I mentioned before the idea of party buffs. We're going to start seeing them now, with Stormblood giving most jobs a party buff, so we continue to wait for party buffs before using Energy Drain. Then we start using Festers. For the second Fester, we will use Death Flare with it. Alternatively, you can move the second Fester to the final Astral Impulse. Even at level cap, we can make Summoner a single weave-based job. But going forward, I'll be keeping these together for extra space for something like Surecast. Saving or adjusting weaving space for support abilities is very useful. Also note that you may struggle to get 6 Astral Impulse uses. Summoner wants a little bit of spell speed, enough to get 6. This is a pretty hard and fast roll going forward. If you can't get 6 uses, feel free to meld a little spell speed. Though while leveling, it's going to be near impossible to have none. Then comes AoE. The same rules apply as before. Just swap the single target spells with AoE. It's a simple swap while having the exact same flow. As shown, Heavensward doesn't do much for us to change the button presses. The pace did shift with gaining instant cast spells though. As we move on, we'll mostly get similar additions. Stormblood is a bit beefier though. Level 62, Enhanced Energy Siphon and Ruin 4. Despite the name, this applies to both. Using Energy Drain or Energy Siphon will grant you, in addition to the normal Aetherflow stacks, a stack of further Ruin. This is just for Ruin 4. It costs 400 MP and is an instant cast AoE spell that is also worth it on single target. If you're going to Ruin 3, use Ruin 4 instead. And same for Outburst, because this does 430 potency to a target and 172 potency to all enemies within 5 yalms of the original target. Beyond damage, this is another of your movement tools. You want to make sure to spend it before you use Energy Drain again, but how you use it can change fight to fight. Similar to changing the order of your summons, you can use Ruin 4 for movement whenever it is called for. If you never need it for movement, that's fine, just spend it every minute. It's flexible, but always should be used thanks to its high power. Level 66, Searing Light. Hey, you, long-time summoner players, Searing Light is no longer the same. On a 120 second cooldown, you buff everyone within 30 yalms of yourself by 5% for 20 seconds. Yes, 20 seconds, not 30. Many players are still using this skill like it lasts for 30 seconds. While 5% isn't huge, buffs are all multiplicative. Since everyone will be using party buffs in their openers, they all make each other stronger. This also will give you something to pace your own opener with. Your goal is to use all your strongest hits while Searing Light is running, which that isn't too hard on Summoner. Simply make sure you're using this every 2 minutes while in combat. It will be paired with every other Dreadwyrm Trance, with every second use being halfway down the cooldown timer. 60 seconds goes into 120 twice, who knew? Level 70, Enhanced Dreadwyrm Trance and Summon Bahamut. We're taking a massive upgrade, turning Dreadwyrm Trance into Summon Bahamut. As a base, it is still just Dreadwyrm Trance that is usable outside of combat. The added bonus is that Carbuncle becomes Demi Bahamut for the duration. Attacking after summoning Bahamut will lead him to use his own auto attack. This is Worm Wave, doing 150 potency with a 1.5 second cooldown. You should see 4 Worm Waves for 600 total potency. Well, yes, it's a 15-second summon, he has an animation time before he's fully summoned. By the time he is, he'll only have time for a few uses. Plus, he has another skill to use anyway. Level 70, Enkindle Bahamut and Morn. Enkindle Bahamut orders Bahamut to use Morn on a 20-second cooldown, which means you only get 1 per summon Bahamut. If you thought Deathflare was nice, Morn makes it look like a laser pointer. Morn does 1300 potency of damage to the target and 520 potency to any additional enemies within 5 yalms of the target. The splash damage is stronger than Deathflare's hit to the main target. Simply make sure you're using this every summon Bahamut, in addition to Deathflare. It's not one or the other, we get to use both. Also make sure to use the command /PetSizeAll small. Bahamut is a really big summon. If you're having trouble seeing, changing the pet size to small will make sure he's as tiny as he is for me. Now let's fit Bahamut and Searing Light into our opener. There's a reason we've been doing Deathflare with the second Fester, and that's because we want to Morn with the first one. Far more damage, far more important to use first. Searing Light, meanwhile, is going to be used in the back half of the cooldown for the first Astral Impulse. This will maximize how much we are able to make use of it, or at least benefiting our team the most. For single weaving, make sure you're spreading your attacks out in the same order. The first impulse will be Searing Light, the second into Energy Drain, the third Morn, the fourth Deathflare, and then we can use the Festers. But if you can make do with double weaves, starting them as late as we do ensures all of our attacks are under all possible party buffs. You may also wonder why we don't use Ruin 4 anyway here. For one, the fact it can be used for movement is still extremely useful. But more importantly, is that at level 100, it's not stronger than our Titan phase. Feel free to throw in Ruin 4 before Titan, but this is going to be something we stop doing later. For AoE, things are working the exact same. Replace our single target casts with AoE casts instead. Searing Light is good to immediately throw out, since AoE tends to be much more focused on front-loading everything. Let's get into Shadowbringers, where we might as well not be getting anything. Level 72, Ruin Mastery 3, Ruby Rite, Topaz Rite, and Emerald Rite. This does nothing to upgrade Ruin. This is instead an upgrade to your Gemshine Ruins. They are now called Rites, but function no differently. This is just some power boosts. Level 74, Outburst Mastery. Outburst upgrades to Tri-Disaster, and that includes your Precious Brilliance outbursts. That's it, that's all it does. Level 80, Enhance Summon Bahamut and Summon Phoenix. This doesn't directly upgrade Summon Bahamut. Summon Bahamut will become Summon Phoenix when it ends, and shares the same cooldown. These will now alternate with each use. Bahamut, Gems, Phoenix, Gems, and then repeat from Bahamut. The differences between the two begin immediately. Upon spawning, Phoenix uses Everlasting Flight. This is a 21-second long heal over time, or HOT. HOTs work on a server tick of 3 seconds. Divide the timer by 3, and we get 7 ticks of the HOT. Each tick is 100 potency of healing for 700 total potency. Unlike Physick, this scales off of intelligence, so it's actually useful as a heal. Plus, it's completely automatic. Fountain of Fire is the Phoenix version of Astral Impulse, and does 540 potency. Brand of Purgatory, or Astral Flare, doing 240 potency. These are stronger than Bahamut. The other skills are the same power. Scarlet Flame is the Phoenix version of the auto attack, doing 150 potency. Enkindle Bahamut becomes Enkindle Phoenix. Phoenix will use Revelation, which is the same 1300 potency. During Phoenix, Astral Flow is not Death Flare, or even a version of Death Flare. Instead we have Rekindle, which has 3 layers. Essentially, this is something you nearly always will put on the tank, but it can be useful in other ways. If you're looking at an enemy when pressing Rekindle, it will apply to you. If you are targeting an ally, it will use Rekindle on them. Firstly, it heals for 400 potency, int-based so it does real healing. Secondly, Rekindle is placed on the ally for 30 seconds. If at any point within these 30 seconds, the target falls below 75% HP, Rekindle will become Undying Flame. For 15 seconds, Undying Flame will heal the target for 200 potency per tick. In total, that is 1000 potency of healing, on top of the 400 from the initial use of Rekindle. You may not be a healer, but 1400 potency is a huge amount of healing. Anytime you can, take the moment to put Rekindle on the tank. Your healer and tank will be helped a lot. Just don't forget to use Fountain of Fire or Brand of Purgatory while you're doing so. If you take damage you shouldn't, you can use it on yourself. If an ally is dying a lot, use it on them to try and keep them alive. The limited time you have to use Rekindle is the main issue. You can't plan for it, and you can't hold on to it for after Phoenix. We just most often throw it onto the tank because they should always be taking damage due to enemy auto attacks. The overall offensive power of Phoenix is near the exact same as Bahamut. At most, it's 100 potency higher on a single target. AoE is a little harder to tell since the trade-off is no Death Flare, which has damage falloff, for a stronger GCD with no falloff. Size of the pool and whether you aim the AoE well are much more important for whether it is the same or barely stronger. Point is, Rekindle is the main bonus of Phoenix. As far as openers, this expansion has done nothing for us. At most, our 1-minute burst phase has become a bird instead of a dragon. Luckily, Shadowbringers being empty is made up for by Endwalker. Level 82, Outburst Mastery 2. This upgrades your Precious Brilliance attacks once again to Catastrophe level skills. This is still just a bunch of potency boosts. Level 84, Ruin Mastery 4. Even more potency upgrades. This one does at least boost Ruin, but not Ruin 4. Potency is nice, not really important otherwise. Level 86, Elemental Mastery. Here we finally are, your final real skill. Elemental Mastery is an upgrade to Astral Impulse. Using Summon Ifrit, Titan, or Garuda will grant this additional effects. How to access and use these effects differs between each summon. Starting with Ifrit, we have Crimson Cyclone and Crimson Strike. Crimson Cyclone is a gap closer costing 0 MP, has no cast time, but is a spell that rolls the GCD. Anywhere within 25 yalms of the enemy, you will rush towards them and do a 5 yalm AoE around it. This is big enough for you to reach the boss from anywhere in most arenas. The target gets hit with 430 potency and all enemies around it 150 potency. Crimson Cyclone then becomes Crimson Strike. Crimson Strike has the same power and effects, but is a melee attack. You must be within 3 yalms of the enemy to use Crimson Strike. If you walk away, you can't use it. You can spread the 2 attacks out for movement reasons. Say, cast Crimson Cyclone, then use your Ruby Rites, then Crimson Strike. Ifrit is no longer completely terrible when it comes to mobility. Just be careful you don't gap close into an enemy AoE. That's the scariest part of this skill. Use it smartly, and note the light animation lock for the dash. Titan gives us Mountain Buster. This is an ability, not a spell like the Crimson skills, that does 150 potency to the first enemy, and 45 potency for every additional enemy within 5 yalms. Using either Topaz Rite or Topaz Catastrophe will turn Astral Flow into Mountain Buster. So after every Topaz attack, you weave in Mountain Buster. We'll see this more in the opener. Garuda meanwhile gives us Slipstream. This is a spell with a high 3-second cast time and 3.5-second recast timer. This does 430 potency to a target and 150 potency to all enemies around it within 5 yalms. What this does different is it puts down a wind puddle. This is a dot, or damage over time, that hits all enemies standing in it for 15 seconds for 30 potency. In total, that's an additional 150 potency per enemy, so long as the enemies stay in the puddle. The lack of drop-off on the puddle is really strong, even if the cast time makes it slightly weaker. Slipstream can have some issues. In boss fights, a boss that moves around a lot, or a tank that is bad at positioning bosses, can cause the boss to entirely miss out on the dot damage. In trash pulls, the tank might think it's an enemy puddle and try to get away from it. Or once again, they're just bad at positioning. In either case, make sure to tell the tank that your puddle is good and really strong. For the bosses, you'll probably forget, but in harder trials and raids, try to plan your puddle placements around the forced movements they do. Make sure to use all of these. Every one of your elemental mastery skills is extremely strong. Skipping these will be a huge mistake. This is enough for our level 90 opener, but we'll keep going to level 90 before we go over it for the future updated skill icons. Level 88, Enhanced Radiant Aegis. This turns Radiant Aegis into a skill with charges. You can now hold 2 charges. The moment you use one charge, it will begin to charge the next use. If you haven't been using Radiant Aegis, you really should be. 2 charges means you can save a charge for later while constantly using a charge every minute to block whatever damage is called for. Just remember, Bahamut, Phoenix, and the time it takes for your gem summons to do their attacks is time that Radiant Aegis is not available. You must have Carby on the field. Level 90, Enkindle II, Summon Ifrit II, Titan II, and Garuda II. This skill is a lot of flash for what amounts to very small potency boosts. Our summons are upgraded and now summon the actual primals themselves. That's kinda worrying when you consider the lore of the game, but sure, let's roll with it. They all do a 750 potency AoE on the target, and all enemies within 5 yalms take 300 potency of damage. This means we no longer have to deal with the weird shapes of the little guys. All 3 have the same output on summoning. Now it comes down entirely to the skills you gain from the summons, our rights and the elemental mastery skills. Now we can go over the opener with our updated summons. I just wanted the icons, and openers are usually something you only sometimes get to use in level cap duties. As mentioned, Mountain Buster is why we start with Titan. It's the highest potency option, and arguably the least difficult gem to use. While it's not been too bad so far, in Dawntrail even the casual content has started to be rude with when mechanics happen. Often mechanics are happening during your openers. Titan has full movement, so you can run around just fine and do as the fight asks. The Swiftcast usage is the interesting part. This mostly is something you'll only need to do if you're using potions. You can just barely get the slipstream boosted by it. If you feel like you need to save the Swiftcast for movement at some other point though, skip it. Then for AoE, this is why we want to Garuda first. The puddle is both strong and needs time to work. The later you do the puddle, the more chance enemies will die before the full worth is gotten. Titan and Ifrit I tend to use interchangeably. The low power of Mountain Buster doesn't feel as good as big explosions. Overall, it's not as big a difference as single target. That's the big finish for Endwalker, but Dawntrail is the first expansion after the big summoner rework. That means we're going to get something really cool and game-changing, right? Right? Level 92, Enhanced Festa and Necrotize. Festa is getting a power boost now. It has become Necrotize, doing 440 potency per use. The problem is people dislike the animation and sound effects. It's just not as cool to a lot of people. But yeah, just a power boost. Level 94, Arcane Mastery. Speaking of potency boosts, that's all this is. It's a lot of them though. All in all, it counts as 14 power boosts. It boosts so many things, it might as well be like Maim and Mend again. Level 96, Enhanced Searing Light and Searing Flash. This is both a new button and not. This is our only example of action change settings. You can have Searing Light turn into Searing Flash after using it. You can also keep Flash as its own button. Pick and choose the settings how you like, but I will have them be the same button. Searing Flash, meanwhile, is another OGCD skill. It deals 600 potency to the selected target and all enemies within 5 yalms. After so many skills with such high drop-off, it's amazing we get a skill with absolutely no drop-off. This is just an insanely strong attack for AoE, an extra boost for our burst every 2 minutes. Level 100, Enhanced Summon Bahamut II, Summon Solar Bahamut, and Lux Solaris. So normally you might think this is something super neat, and then you realize this is just a stronger version of Bahamut. Exodus is just Akmorn, but a bit stronger. Sunflare is just Deathflare, but stronger. Luxwave is Wormwave, but stronger. The absolute only change made here is gaining Lux Solaris. Every use of Solar Bahamut gives 1 use with a 30-second timer. You can hold the use a little bit beyond Solar Bahamut, but not too long. This is an AoE heal with a potency of 500. That's a decent heal since it scales off of Int. Since it's an OGCD, you can weave it in whenever you need to. Just make sure you're not skipping the important attacking skills or forgetting about Radiant Aegis. That is also why we've been double weaving in our opener. It gives us more space for Lux Solaris if you need it. Again, consider that mechanics are happening a lot during burst phases in Dawntrail. That means taking damage too. You can help the party along with throwing out Lux Solaris. That's assuming the healers aren't on top of things. It's not a complete game changer, but it is a good heal, which is more than you can say about Solar Bahamut as a whole. A boring skill to get when they could have done anything new. There is an important note to Solar Bahamut in regards to your summons and how they rotate. Bahamut isn't gone, he's still around. It's now a 4-minute rotation going in the following order. Solar Bahamut, Bahamut, Solar Bahamut, Phoenix. Solar Bahamut is every 2-minute window, with the other 2 filling in windows between. Also, death means you get set back to the start of the loop. As far as openers, it's nearly the exact same. Just make sure to toss in Searing Flash at the end of your Bahamut phase. The same applies to AoE. I'm just going to show the image for a moment and leave it at that. It's so unchanged. Otherwise, it's time for the karaoke opener, where I say the names of the skills as I use them. This will give you a good feeling for the pace of the opener. Just remember there is a single weave based option if you need to do it. I'll be doing the normally accepted opener still. Pre-pull, Summon Carbuncle, Ruin III, Summon Solar Bahamut, Umbral Impulse, Searing Light, Umbral Impulse, Umbral Impulse, Energy Drain, Umbral Impulse, Exodus, Necrotize, Umbral Impulse, Sunflare, Necrotize, Umbral Impulse, Searing Flash, Summon Titan II, Topaz Right, Mountain Buster, Topaz Right, Mountain Buster, Topaz Right, Mountain Buster, Topaz Right, Mountain Buster, Summon Garuda II, Swiftcast, Slipstream, A disappointing end to what I otherwise thought was a great job rework in Endwalker. It had so much potential, and they just didn't go anywhere with it. Maybe in the future of the game, but I doubt it. Thank you for watching this Summoner 1 to 100 leveling skills guide. Feel free to give feedback or ask questions on what might still be confusing to you. I am always seeking to improve, as should you. Don't stop with this guide, even if I succeeded in helping you improve. Please leave a rating, comment, sub, those really do help creators. You can also come watch me on Twitch, or even go follow my Patreon. The links in the description will take you where you need to. Have fun in your adventures across Tyrol, and may the power of Anne and Nidhogg lay waste to your enemies.